Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Donald Trump has sent Vice President JD Vance to Islamabad for negotiating the talks on the Iran war. Now, this after Iran categorically refused to talk to Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Now, yesterday, if you look at the all-party meeting, which happened in India, Foreign Minister S Jaishankar had called Pakistan a broker nation, a dalal nation. This is what he said. But is this remark a case of sour grapes? Because there is a debate on whether India should have played the role of a negotiator in the Iran war. Now, is it pragmatism or a lost opportunity for India not to intervene in the Iran-Israel war? This is what we'll be discussing over the next 30 minutes. Joining me this evening is Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha, who's an international affairs expert and diplomat. I'm also hoping to be joined by former Ambassador Veena Sikri, and I think Pushpraj Deshpande also will join us. Ambassador Sikri is already there. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. And Professor Pasha is also there. So let me begin with Professor Pasha, and then I'll come to Ambassador Veena Sikri. Professor Pasha, there is a debate on whether India should have played the role of a negotiator. Many people feel that it was a risk. If India had gone ahead and played the role of a negotiator, it would have been a big risk, so it's better to stay away. How about a view like that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Neeluji. You see, our relations with the US as strategic partner and also with Israel are a factor in any mediatory attempts, because we have identified so closely with these two major parties which are seen as aggressor by Iran. And perhaps if Prime Minister Modi had not visited so close to the attack on Iran, perhaps Iran would have seen positively our role to a certain extent. But now it has become complicated because these two actors in bad faith attacked Iran when the negotiations this time also were underway, like last time in June last year. So Iran views these two aggressors as mortal danger to its national security, and it is reflected in the indiscriminate bombing, not only of so-called military targets but also large number of civilians, thousands of them Iranians, and bombing out the power plants, etc., etc. So Iran, sees these hostile powers in a different light. So I think we have elbowed out ourselves from this meeting, because you must keep a balance between both the parties. And Pakistan's case is different, although it is a close ally of America, but it has nothing to do formally with Israel. So in that way, America has been causing up with Pakistan since the Trump 2 administration, and they have elevated the relationship. Earlier it was a major non-NATO ally, but now it is a strategic partnership, so on and so forth. So in that way, I think it is better to keep off from this mediation attempt because both the parties don't seem to be serious. You see, the new leadership in Iran, almost dominated by the IRGC, is pursuing a hard line because the peacemakers or friendly to negotiations have been virtually wiped out. Ali Khamenei was also blessing the peace process until the last moment. Then President
Do you see this as a lost opportunity for India? Because many people feel that India could have played a major role because it's chairing the BRICS, and it should have played the role of a mediator. But do you think it's a lost opportunity?
Yes, it's a very big loss from what our leaders have been claiming as Vishwaguru and attempts to mediate in Ukraine, so on and so forth. But, it is our own making. If that misplaced visit had not taken place, as I said, it would have been better. At least we could have negotiated. But it is very difficult now. We have missed the bus, and it will be very difficult to retrieve the lost chance. And the minimum India could have done was to convene a meeting and persuade the other members whom we
Right.
claim that there is no consensus.
Hmm.
At least online meeting, if it had been convened, and we would have known, and Iran as a member would have seen what is the position of whom India claims are not amenable to the proposal BRICS wants to have. The common minimum program could have been ironed out with a statement like it's a violation of international law, UN Charter, it's unprovoked aggression. Sometimes maybe without naming both the countries, that Iran has the right to defend under UN Charter and so on and so forth. Even that minimum attempt, common minimum program, was not articulate, which means India itself is not enthusiastic because of US-Israeli pressure to convene a meeting. And last year, you remember, when the BRICS meeting was held in Brazil, when Prime Minister visited that country, President Trump, he said, why are you going there? It's an anti-American alliance. This will have consequences on the members who are participating, and he accused them of working for de-dollarization and making his Make America Great program and tariffs undermined, so on and so forth. So he has an agenda, President. He hates, and he said it is dead. So we have caved into American pressure on this and like on other issues. So I don't think we have the credibility and the trust to act as a mediator, at least in the foreseeable future.
Right. Okay, now let me come to Ambassador Veena Sikri. Ambassador Sikri, what do you feel? I mean, is it a lost opportunity for India? Do you think that India is being pragmatic by not being part of this whole negotiating peace with Iran and Israel? How do you see? Because people are criticizing that India is going to chair the BRICS meeting, and it would have been the right thing to do, and India could have been into a leadership role. But by staying away, do you think that India has done the right thing, or do you think it's a lost opportunity?
Please let me say quite categorically that I do not agree with what Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha has said in its entirety. I don't agree with it at all. Neither do I agree with your definition of a lost opportunity. There has to be an understanding of how negotiations are conducted in times of crisis. This is an ongoing, evolving crisis. I think Prime Minister Modi's visit to Israel had nothing to do with the present situation. It was a normal visit. It is just that immediately after that visit, this opportunity, according to Israel and USA, appeared because they found out that Supreme Leader Khomeini was going to be in this particular meeting with a lot of his leaders, and so they took advantage of that. But let me assure you that India is the one country in the world that has the best relations with all the parties to the conflict, each and every one of them. Our Prime Minister has spoken to President of Iran, Dr. Masoud Pezeshkian, at least twice. Our Foreign Minister has been in touch with the Foreign Minister of Iran on many occasions. More than 3 or 4 times they have spoken. India is one of the first countries whose ships were allowed to sail through the Straits of Hormuz unhindered. Even today, India is in the first list of countries which is been declared by Iran as being allowed to sail through the Straits of Hormuz. Does this show a country which has not good relations with Iran? I am absolutely amazed at all these kind of conclusions that are being drawn. And I must tell you that whether it is America, whether it is UK, whether it is Europe, the media is full of indications. They're saying that the only one leader in the world who can be the best mediator in the crisis is Prime Minister Modi. He's the one leader in the world who has 68% approval ratings from his people, unlike any other leader, many of the other leaders in the world. And the world individual analysts, the think tankers are saying this. And here we are in our own country talking about lost opportunity. In an evolving conflict, an opportunity is there every day and it is being utilized.
Are you saying that all the questions, Ambassador Sikri, just allow me to interrupt you. Are you saying that the people who are asking these questions, whether it is pragmatism or whether it's a lost opportunity, do you think that these questions are misplaced? And you are saying that Prime Minister Modi is the most popular Prime Minister in the country. Of course, in our country, he's popular, but there are people who are criticizing. People are criticizing our silence. People are criticizing the fact that we are not taking any position. We've not condemned the killings of so many schoolgirls who were killed in Iran. We've not condemned Khamenei's killing, even though we had civilizational ties with Iran.
No, I am saying that please do not confuse what is happening within the country. Within the country, the political opposition may be saying many things, and I am not going to go into that, because that is something within the country. I'm talking about the global situation. We are discussing a global situation. We're discussing a crisis. Iran and Israel. Iran has been attacked by Israel and USA. There's no doubt about that. And our foreign secretary went and signed the condolence book for Supreme Leader Khamenei. And I think they're fully aware. I mean, the attack in the school,
after many days.
The school,
After
the
many
school
days.
children was absolutely reprehensible. There's no way. It has to be strongly condemned. I'm talking about, even as chairman of BRICS, India is in touch with all the BRICS members. There does not have to be a meeting. In fact, very often, as I know, I've worked in multilateral, very often in a multilateral situation, if you have a meeting, it only hardens position. And then after that, it's difficult to work out an agreed document.
I'll ask you one more question, then I'll go to Pushparaj. That don't you think that the countries are not looking up to India? There are a lot of expectations from a nation like India, and I mean, it was supposed to be a voice of the global South. Where is our voice? We are not heard. We are not taking any position. We are not taking a stand.
I don't understand how you come to the conclusion that we are not heard. I don't understand that conclusion at all, because maybe from the Indian media you are using that conclusion. But if you see what is happening on the world stage, with a number of times our foreign minister has spoken to world foreign ministers, and the number of times our prime minister has spoken to world leaders. He's spoken to President Trump as well. He's spoken to President Pezeshkian as well. He's spoken to the leaders of all the Gulf countries, whether it's President of UAE, whether it is Oman, Kuwait, all the other countries. All these discussions are leading to something. It doesn't have to happen overnight. It doesn't have to happen in the open. We are trying to get, as the president of chairman, the current chairman of BRICS, we are getting the agreement. Please, I think in the midst of all this, to come to a definitive about a lost opportunity and so on, I think we've seen what happened with Pakistan. That they,
allow me to ask you another question. Allow me to ask you another question, which I'm really tempted to ask you, that as a former diplomat, do you not feel worried that Islamabad is getting a pole position in negotiating on the Iran-Israel war? This role could have been played by India. Why should our enemy, why should our country get a position like this? That's what my question.
I am contesting your very claim that Pakistan has a pole position. I mean, you heard what our External Affairs Minister said. You heard that Pakistan has been now rejected by both Iran and USA. There is some document which they said was originally given by President Trump to Pakistan, and that he is supposed to have passed it on to somebody in Iran. Nobody knows who. And how do you have claimed that Pakistan has a pole position when Iran is rejecting them? When Iran has said President Trump must be talking to himself because he's not talking to us. He's not talking to anybody in Iran. And how Pakistan's ship was stopped in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. You know, even today they might be in some other list. But I don't understand how these conclusions can come about in the midst of a very, very difficult global crisis, which may well one day be described as the start of World War III. Please, I think we have to be very conservative and very serious about this, and we have to understand that India is doing its best, and what India is doing is being recognized the world over. Whether it'll have results or not is time will tell. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow or the day after. Even the statement by BRICS, we are trying for very hard. I'm sure our leaders are in touch with all their counterparts, and a BRICS statement, let us see. I cannot from my own side prophesy whether it will happen or it will not happen, but I can certainly say that every effort is underway, and whether it materializes or not is to be seen. You've seen, I don't know how you're saying that Pakistan has taken pole position when they have been rejected by everybody. We do know that since 1981, since soon after the change in Iran, when the theological regime came into being there, America has been using Pakistan for this. All the time they've been using Pakistan, rightly or wrongly or effectively or ineffectively. They've been doing that, and they're doing it again this time. But you saw the reaction this time, so much that even President Trump has withdrawn from that. So I don't think at all. Please let us. This is a very serious crisis. I don't think we should minimize this global crisis by giving a pole position and not pole position and lost opportunity. These are designations and conclusions that are not warranted by the way in which the situation is evolving. I think everybody is very serious about it. Everybody is trying their best to find a way out, and India is part of that group. India is being recognized by many countries the world over. You should see what is happening in most talk shows, how they're describing India, and how our foreign minister was even in Europe. He was there recently. He's been talking.
I won't go by what mainstream media is saying, because mainstream media is.
What are you going by then? What is your Indian media or mainstream media? So what is your conclusion? How do you draw a conclusion then that India, Pakistan has a vision? We have a lost opportunity. How do you draw that conclusion? How does he say that India has lost an opportunity?
I'm just raising a question, ma'am. I'm just raising a question that is it pragmatic or is it a lost opportunity? Okay, so you've made your point, ma'am.
Pragmatism is that we are trying our best to talk to all the partners and keeping them in the loop and keeping us in the loop as to what is happening, what is the reaction of all the partners. Today, there's a chance that UAE and Saudi Arabia may join the war. Turkey is talking them out of it. Don't join the war. So
yeah, people like Brahmachalani are also writing that this is risk management diplomacy. That's what India is doing. But I'll come back to you, ma'am. Let me come back to you. I'll just get in Pushpraj Deshpande now, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra. He also works closely with the Foreign Affairs Department of the Congress. Thank you so much, Pushpraj, for joining. You heard Ambassador Sikri making her points. Would you like to respond to what she said? Yes.
No, I completely agree with the ambassador. We do need to be very conservative, and we need to be very cognizant of how the world is looking at us. So I'm just going to be very factual. I'm not going to draw any ideological conclusions on what we have discussed so far. Factually speaking, yes, the Prime Minister has spoken to the GCC countries, the leaders of the GCC countries. That's a very good thing. He has also released a statement, not the Prime Minister, the MEA has released a statement asking for peaceful resolution of disputes, so on and so forth, which is in sync with what we have consistently stood for. Of course, I don't know why the Prime Minister chose not to speak to the Supreme Leader, the newly elected Supreme Leader of Iran. Maybe the Foreign Minister was deemed good enough to do that. But having said that, we have sort of spoken. So in that sense, the ambassador is right in the fact that we have spoken to all the sides. However, what we did not do, and this is something that continues from what happened, the kinetic action that happened in Venezuela, is condemn the kidnapping first in Venezuela, and second, the targeted assassination of an elected head of state, which last I checked was illegal in the international law. The UN Charter, Articles 2, 3, and 4 specifically do talk about that. Plus, we did not also condemn the unsanctioned, when I say unsanctioned, I do mean the United Nations Security Council has not sanctioned this, and we did not condemn the unsanctioned attack on Iran. We spoke about, we have not, at least on the face of it, said anything publicly. So in the sense, our commitments to the rules-based order that we were instrumental in collectively upholding and safeguarding, we have not really adhered to that. That's one thing. This is fact. There's no ideological basis in this. The second thing is that when our Prime Minister visited one of the enemy nation, one of the nations that is currently involved in a conflict on the eve of the war, irrespective of irrespective of what was said, I do remember a statement where he said that we are completely with you in, I'm forgetting the exact phrase, but he used embedded terror somewhere in that particular statement of his. And whether we don't know what has transpired behind the scenes, but this would be, at least in global capitals, and I know having spoken to a number of progressive parties in the BRICS, they do see this as a political endorsement of kinetic action without UNSC sanction. And they see this as a political endorsement of a party, the Likud party, on the eve of their national elections. They are going into elections 5 months from now. Now, this is the second time where our Prime Minister has interfered in the domestic politics of another nation. The first time he campaigned for President Trump. I don't know what diplomacy talks about. I mean, I've not been a diplomat ever, but I do think that there is a certain Lakshman Rekha that we don't cross. If we do crib about a supposed alleged interference by George Soros and gang into the domestic affairs of our country, we certainly should not be interfering in the domestic affairs of another country, in Israel in this case, and earlier in America. And of course, the perception is, and this is something that progressive parties, many of them are in government, do widely hold. And I know this because we have spoken to them, including Iran, and I've spoken to both the ambassador and the representative of the Ayatollah in person. They do see this as an endorsement of kinetic action on Iran. So this is something that should be worrying us. Now, irrespective of whether our foreign minister and our foreign secretary has signed a condolence book, the perception is that we have eschewed and sort of abdicated our civilizational historical ties with Iran. That's the second thing. The third thing, objectively, America has signaled to us by blowing a ship, and a defenseless ship in our strategic backyard, that they can do this in our strategic ocean. I mean, yes, feasibly, technically, we can say this is beyond the 12 miles nautical this thing, but we have consistently said that we are the net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. This was a signal America sent both to India and to China, saying that we will do what we can and you will have to suck it up to us, whatever it is. Now, the thing is that this has dented our credibility as a net security provider across the board, and we have inexplicably been mute about this. Iran does notice all this. These are long-term consequences, and Iran also, please, I also want to understand, and this is something that after having spoken to both the NSA, the former NSA, as well as the former RAW chief, they've publicly spoken about this. Both Dulat and Shiv Shankar Menon have spoken. I don't know if their word counts for anything to the ambassador and the others here, but they have said that a weakened Iran strategically helps strengthen Turkey and Israel, which actually weakens us vis-a-vis Pakistan, who has consistently been a problem for us. Now, if that is something that we wanted to do, we could have actually, the Prime Minister and the government could have done nothing better than what they have done right now. Effectively, what they have done, signal to Iran, is to say that we refuse to stand by you publicly, we refuse to uphold the rules-based order, and we refuse to provide any kind of support. Now, look at the cost that we are paying. And again, now I come to the facts of the matter here. 2 ships to the west of the Hormuz Strait, already west, were allowed to pass towards India. They provided enough oil for 1.5 days. I don't know how big a relief this is to India, but perhaps given our strategic buffers, the strategic petroleum buffers are right now at 8 to 9 days. 1.5 days additional. It's certainly nowhere close to China, which has about 9 months of strategic buffers, oil buffers. But maybe this is a big addition. 28 ships. To the last I checked, and I was just checking Google right now, I don't see any other evidence to negate what I'm saying. 28 ships continue to be stuck on the west coast of Iran, the west of the Strait of Hormuz. They have still not been allowed to pass. The 2 ships that were allowed to pass, reportedly, I don't know, this is hearsay, but reportedly, we have had to pay $2 million for let them pass. Now, effectively, Iran is now licensing passage to the Strait of Hormuz. If we are actually friends with Iran, and if Iran doesn't really have any animosity or any subjective problem with India right now, they shouldn't have actually charged us anything. And the second thing is, Iran is actually now producing more oil, which we are not getting at discounted at the rupee. And this is now actually yielding them. They're selling Iranian oil. Before the war started, they were producing 1.2 million barrels per this thing. Now it's 1.6 million barrels, which they are selling now at $114 per barrel. Earlier, they were selling it for $48 per barrel. So Iran is objectively better off. I'm not even getting into the military casualties on both sides. We are not getting any of that. We are not getting it at a discount rate. The OFAC waiver that we have got for 30 days, mind you, 30 days, has come from Russia, and Russia is no longer giving us a discounted oil. We are actually buying it at a premium, which is 20% higher than what was earlier. So I don't see how India is anyway better off than what we were before. Our strategic reputation is in tatters because of what happened with the ship. Our fuel shortage. I mean, we are not really well off with regard to fuel and LPG and LNG, and this is going to have magnifying effect. I completely agree with the ambassador in saying that yes, this is an evolving situation. Yes, we need to be much more careful and circumscript about what we are saying. But I don't think to laud the government to do what it has done would be to obfuscate what actually has happened. yes, we are actually poised because of the fact that we have somehow adhered to non-alignment for so long. We are well positioned to actually negotiate between various nations, including the GCC, Iran, Israel, and US. I would agree with that assessment. But this has got nothing to do with this government. This is a long-standing foreign policy consensus that India has adhered to. And now, if you go to Ukraine and say that I'm going to be Vishwaguru here, ma'am, I didn't interrupt you, madam. Please, if you could do the courtesy to let me finish. When we go to Ukraine and say that I'm going to mediate and I'm going to be Vishwaguru here, and now when you are asked to mediate, you're saying this is dalal diplomacy. I don't understand what are we signaling to the world? There was a time when India mediated multiple nations, and I know for a fact when pressure was put on us when the PL 480 program was stopped, when we condemned American attack in Vietnam. I don't think Prime Minister Indira Gandhi went begging to the United States to restart the PL 480. 4 years later, we were self-sufficient in food and we split Pakistan into two parts. So I'm sorry, but there is certain strategic and diplomatic weakness that this government is displaying consistently. And to obfuscate that because of ideological blinkers would be a grave disservice to the national interest.
Okay, so I'll get into response to what you've said. Your comments, ma'am, Ambassador Sikri. Yes.
Well, I must say quite amazingly, because the person seems to have gone off the air. But I to give ideological, oversight to everything that is being said, I think that's not a debate at all. If I'm arguing on a certain point of view, to then dismiss it, this is ideological. This is totally non-objective. This is not a kind of debate that you can have. Certainly you cannot. And now he's gone off the air totally. So what is this all about? I don't understand what this debate is all about. Where a person, you say something and that person goes off the air. First one person went off the air, now the other person has gone off the air. What is this? Is this a discussion or a debate? Or is it some kind of ideological propaganda? I am completely non-ideological. I absolutely do not, I'm not part of any political party at all. And then to suddenly come and say that this is ideology and dismiss it on ideological grounds, this is not a debate. This is not a discussion. And then to recall something that happened maybe 20, 50 years ago or 60 years ago, and to laud that and to say something that's happened in the last 10 years, you ignore all of that, then is that ideological? Is that also some other ideological stance? No, please. I don't think this is a valuable debate at all. I don't think we can discuss items on this. I would just like to recall that yes, America did shoot that torpedo that ship, but we ourselves gave protection to 2 other ships of Iran, and we made sure that the people on that ship got back to their country, Iran. And Iran has expressed its appreciation of that. So I think India's approach of
you don't feel that
it's very much intact, and that is how we are working out the situation. It takes time, and we will see the outcome.
No, but the whole point is that had India taken a clear stand, then we did have a good relationship with Iran, and probably the India wouldn't have had to face such a big crisis. Iran would have helped, had lent a helping hand, and much better than what it is doing today. That's what the whole point is, ma'am.
The point about strategic autonomy is to keep equally in touch with all sides and to be in a position to be able to talk freely and independently with all the players.
It also shows that we are everywhere but nowhere. We are everywhere but nowhere.
We are buying oil from Iran. I do not at all agree with this business of the 2 million. There's no information about that at all. To make just an allegation like that does not bring anything to anybody. But we are trying to keep in touch with all sides, and that's what we are doing. So by going, some remark referred to by Prime Minister when he went to Iran, whether that was about Gaza, about the terrorists, we've always condemned Hamas as a terrorist organization. But we always supported the two-state theory for Palestine. We are strongly in support of an independent country for the people of Palestine. So these are, one has to look at not only a remark but the whole policy behind it. So I think that this is important, and I think yes, every government does have its own foreign policy, but basically India's foreign policy has been a matter of bipartisan approval. And the biggest thing I do regret today is that this bipartisan approval is not even anywhere near being in evidence. Yesterday, I was at another talk show, and when we were talking about same Israel, US attack on Iran, and you had people from different political parties who were busy, squabbling among themselves. You said this, you said that, you did this wrong. I said, look, we're talking about a potential World War III situation. Shouldn't we get over these narrow differences and talk about a non-partisan, multi-partisan foreign policy that will carry such a big voice all over the world? But on the other hand, you have today in India a political situation where some parties are talking about, there's black marketing in LPG and creating all kinds of problems, and the other party is saying, no, we've got this. We have to be together in times of crisis. We have to consider the nation in times of crisis. I'm not talking of any political party or the other, but if we would consider that we've always had a bipartisan, approach to foreign policy, whatever the differences in India, even Atal Bihari Vajpayee, when he went to the UN, he was sent by the UPA government. He spoke there in favor of the UPA government, saying this is what it is all about. When they come abroad, we don't talk. Indira Gandhi, when she went to, when she was put in jail and then afterwards went to London when she was, again, and she said, no, I will not talk about that abroad. I will say whatever I want within the country, but I will not say anything about it abroad. So this is the kind of policy we've always had. So I think we should be searching for that. And these talks and discussions are very valuable. It's very good that you're organizing a talk on this. These should be occasions to find that common ground. This should be our objective, to find the common ground and to lead the country in a way that will bring us, all of us together on a global position. That is what will get us global respect.
Definitely, ma'am, the idea is not to have a tutu meme debate here, but we are raising a question, whether it is pragmatism, whether it's a lost opportunity, and one needs to raise this question at this point of time. So to attach everything to the ideology, I think would be wrong. But let me get in Pushparaj now for the concluding comments. Pushparaj, you'd like to say something, then we'll close the show. Yeah.
Hi. Sorry. So just to quickly respond, I think ma'am was a bit unclear as to where Iran is charging ships transit fees for safe passage. This is widely reported. Bloomberg has reported. Al Jazeera has reported it. The American.
Charging, yes, whether India has been charged, they are charging, and that has been reported widely. But on the question of India, I have not seen any report yet about it. I have not seen any.
I don't know if this is. I didn't interrupt you, ma'am.
Debating. Why is it not debating? I mean, if a government decides,
is this diplomatic? Is this something that is this your larger forging of a foreign policy consensus, madam? Is this how you forge consensus, by talking over people, interrupting them?
No, I'm not talking over people. I'm not talking over people.
Madam. Please let me speak.
I'm anyways just taking the concluding comments. So let's
going through this. Let me please finish this thing. And as I said, it has been widely reported, including Indian ships. If you could just go and do some basic research, you would eliminate yourself. That's one thing. The second thing is, I don't think strategic autonomy is, and this is something is, I'm genuinely trying to say this in the interest of forging a foreign policy consensus. Strategic autonomy, at best of my knowledge, is not just talking to everyone. It is also, if defined as the ability of a state to pursue our national interests. It is not in our national interest to leave our energy insecure, our population in such an energy insecure situation. It is not on our interest to compromise our strategic autonomy, to have ships blown up in our strategic backwaters, and have the entire Indian Ocean region looking at us as if we are not willing to do anything. It is not in our strategic interest. It is not in our. Madam, please do not interrupt me. This is extremely.
I am not interrupting. I'm making up my finger. Please.
Let me finish.
I mean, what is this?
I must.
What kind of
ask you.
No. I'm just taking the concluding comments, ma'am. Let me just get in the concluding comments. We'll finish the show. We can have your view.
As one thing, I mean, said about the two-state solution and Palestine. Actually, even though we have consistently adhered to the fact that we do want a two-state solution, and we have voted Palestine. Today, I'm just looking at the Rajya Sabha answer that was answered in 2025. In the last 10 years, we have abstained again on Palestine 8 times by this government with regard to humanitarian issues, with regard to the conflict, unilateral conflict on Palestine, as well as a two-state solution. 8 times. This has never happened before. I don't understand how one can argue that we are consistently adhering to a rules-based order and non-alignment.
allow ma'am to make a point, then I'll have to close the show because we are running out of time. Okay, ma'am, to you for the last thoughts. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think first of all, when we talk about strategic autonomy, this is built up on our original policy of non-alignment, which went into so many different aspects of it. It is a very important policy. The conduct of the policy has, in my view, been successful all along, all these years. I'm not talking about, I'm not blaming any one side or the other. And strategic autonomy, the whole policy of strategic autonomy is based on India's national interests. It is based on our appreciation that we will be able to serve our national interests best by maintaining strategic autonomy. So I don't know how the conclusion comes the other way around, that strategic autonomy is not serving India's national interests. The whole foreign policy of strategic autonomy is based on India's national interests. So please, I think let's just, not get into it.
We're running short of time now. So I think we've got both sides. We've got both sides.
This is just selective, just nonsense. I never said this. I said we are not adhering to strategic autonomy. That's what I'm saying. Our national interests are not being served by taking up.
If you do a
sorry, this is not adhering to strategic autonomy.
Okay, I think this is something which is going to be debated in the days to come. It's going to be written as editorials in the days to come. But yes, let's all hope that the crisis comes to an end, because we are facing, the reality is that there is a shortage of LPG, there is a shortage of oil, gas, and people are standing in queues, and we don't want that situation to perpetuate for many, many months or weeks. And Prime Minister already has said that we are facing a COVID-like situation. Media says that let's not panic. So what is the real situation? We do not know, but I'll have to end it here. Thank you so much.
Global crisis. We should appreciate it's a global crisis. And that is what the COVID-like situation reference was for. It is a global crisis. We cannot see it in our own narrow little pigeonholes, but we just accept the global crisis, and we have to accept that the government is taking its best to deal with it. And we have to accept
Prime Minister Modi has a hand in committing.
Okay, just hold on. I'm running short of time.
Endorsed. Okay, right. How do you forget the fact that he's had a role in committing crisis?
All right. Okay. So there can be many more episodes of these kind of debates, but we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Ambassador Sikri. Pushpraj, thank you so much for joining. Thank you.